Hey, what's going on, guys? Javier here with Minimalist Tech. Today I want to share my long-term experience and review of the Keychron K4 mechanical keyboard. So back in 2020, when work from home became a thing, just like a lot of you, I found myself suddenly spending way more time in the home office. I figured it was time for some home office upgrades, one of which was my keyboard. At the time, I was using some crummy keyboard with knockoff red switches. It was fine, but I really wanted something with real switches, better quality, and a minimal aesthetic. I was also in the midst of cutting cables to get all my peripherals wireless. Seeing Keychron boards all over social media and YouTube, I figured with that many people using it, it's gotta be good. Now with my day job, working in finance, I'm all about that numpad life. At first I was apprehensive because I didn't think they'd have an option with a numpad. All the ones I saw online were 10 keyless, but as all marketing goes, I found myself on their website with the K4 in my cart. I had originally looked through their various models to see what would fit best. I usually like to compare the top end options to the bottom options and see what I can live without. I'm always a fan of baseline tech, so really I wasn't looking for many bells or whistles. They do offer additional options like aluminum frames, RGB, or hot swappable switches, each going for about 10 bucks a pop. None of those really appealed to me. I ended up getting the baseline model with just the white backlights, but I probably should have paid the extra 10 bucks to get hot swappable switches just to give myself the option. This one ended up being about $70 US, which is 90 bucks Canadian. Now, I probably should have spent a little more time researching what types of switches I'd like, but honestly, I was super new to mechanical keyboards. I actually regret getting the brown switches, but more on that later. Off the bat, I can see why so many people have these. Really, the keyboard is amazing value for the price. The one I got is plastic, but honestly it has no flex to it, probably because it's so thick. This is by far the thickest keyboard I've ever owned, but it's pretty close to my Corsair K6 III. The keys haven't really worn at all. Granted, it's only been about 6 months. These have the Mac keys on it by default, but in the box there were some Windows keys to swap out alongside a right angle USB-C cable and some key pullers. Taking a look at the body, the side has a USB-C port, a Mac and Windows switch, as well as a cabled, off, and Bluetooth connection switch. The Mac Windows switch is for swapping over your Command Start key, as well as your Option and Alt key. That's also tied to how the function keys will work depending on your OS. Now in terms of size, this is another reason I was drawn in. It's only slightly larger than a 60 or 65% layout, but it still has that numpad I needed. It just suits me better ergonomically, especially with my Magic Trackpad. Now I do have another mechanical keyboard I use for just gaming. That's my Corsair K6 III. And one of my biggest comparisons I noticed off the bat is actually how wobbly the keys are on the K4. Not that that's a deal breaker, but it is noticeable. The more I've looked into it, I've seen some folks online saying that the Keychron hype is for people who don't really know much about mechanical keyboards, but really that doesn't really matter. If you need a good keyboard for 70 bucks, this one will do just fine. Now as a desk worker, I actually started getting wrist pains after about 4 months, probably because the front end of the keyboard is so thick, so you should probably invest in a wrist rest. Keychron does sell their own, but I picked this cheapo one off Amazon after the fact. I'm a real fan of these wooden ones. Lastly, there are adjustable feet on the keyboard with 2 different heights if that is something you actually need. Now quickly, if you're new here, it would mean the world if you could leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to sip some water and check your posture. Gotta keep that spine healthy. Moving on to battery life, I've actually never had this thing die. I think I might have seen a red LED show up near the charging port, but I can't even remember if that exists because I think I've seen it maybe once or twice. Of course, depending on the settings of your keyboard's backlights, that'll be different for everybody. Now, I find the battery saver for this keyboard kicks in rather quickly. I don't think there's a way to make that longer, but you can just turn it off. I always keep this USB-C cable handy regardless for easy plug-in. So if you're into different lighting patterns, they do have a bunch available. It looks pretty cool. I find some of them distracting, so I usually just keep the static light for my boring self. They've also got a bunch of function shortcuts to change your interaction with the keyboard. I'll throw those up on the screen if you do need them. So apart from the look and price, a huge reason I picked this up is actually the connectivity. All the Keychron keyboards connect up to 3 devices. At first, this keyboard was super weird to use. It's not a layout I had ever used before. The numpad has a shortened 0 compared to a standard numpad. So even though the layout's weird, it only took me about a week to get used to it. Here's a quick comparison of sound between the 3 keyboards I usually have in rotation. Overall, this keyboard would be an incredible addition to almost any setup. It's small, sleek, minimal, the connectivity is easy to use, especially that it goes between 3 devices. Not to mention the price is great for what you're getting. Anyways, that's been it. Thank you for watching. Till next time.